Listen up, holler. Out in the country in Sampson County, around Spivey's corner, they used to communicate back and forth. So the people would get up in the morning and they would holler over to their neighbors, and their neighbors would holler back, and they'd all know that everybody's doing okay. Otherwise, they might do a distress holler, which would just sound something like this. Which some people say that's where we got the sound of our emergency vehicle sirens, was from the hollers that they did back then. I can't prove that, but that's what I've heard. So that gives you an idea of the hollering being a loud, high-pitched, some people might say noise, but we'll say vocalization. And a long time ago, in 1997, I decided to look into hollering, because back in the mid-70s, I had seen some of the hollering champions on Johnny Carson. And I go, wow, there's a local yokel from North Carolina getting to be on the Johnny Carson show and getting to meet him and that kind of thing. And it always stuck in the back of my mind. And I moved to California and to Kentucky and to Virginia and back to North Carolina. And in 1997, I decided to look into it. And so I went to the reference librarian in Burlington, North Carolina, at the library, and she gave me a name of Mr. Erman Godwin Jr., and I got his and his phone number. I looked it up on the internet, and I called him up, and he told me about the hollering. And he said the closest thing that most people have heard before to this kind of hollering that we do down here in Spivey's Corner is the Tarzan holler. He didn't call it the Tarzan yell or the Tarzan scream. He said the Tarzan holler. And I had already been working on my Tarzan holler, and it took me a long time to, quote, perfect it. But I worked on it and worked on it, and so I've come up with my version of the Tarzan holler that sounds a little bit like Johnny Weissmuller's Tarzan holler. You get a good feel for what hollering's all about when you hear that full voice crack up into the falsetto. Well, the people down in Sampson County area, they took that vocalization technique and turned it into an art form. And that's what the hollering contest was meant to preserve, was that almost lost art of hollering as an expression of one's musical talent, ability, and appreciation. I have to say, though, the hollering contest was around for many years, several decades. Started in 1969 until 2013. They ran every year. They've skipped a couple of years, and they're talking about having one in 2018. If they have that in 2018, it will probably be in September. It always used to be in June, the third Saturday of June. Then they changed it to be September, and things have dropped off, and it's not as big of a fundraiser as it used to be. And so if they have another one, it's going to be next year sometime. So if you go to the hollering contest in Spivey's Corner on your bucket list, you better pay attention next year and listen for when it might be. Look on the internet, they'll have a website about it and all that sort of thing. And you can go to the hollering contest, and that's supposed to be the very last one ever, unless somebody else revives it in some other way. Anyway, some of the other kinds of hollers, like I said, were the expressive ones. And they do some of these just for fun. So I want to do one that involves a percussive technique that you may have heard something like this on Hee Haw, where I'm pretty sure it was Grandpa Jones, is that his name? And they'd have all the musicians up on stage, and they'd have a wash tub band kind of thing. And every once in a while, Grandpa would be doing this noise-like thing little percussive where you make a sound when you inhale as well as when you exhale. So he'd go, that kind of thing. Well, they used that technique in Hollerin, and a fellow by the name of Leonard Emanuel used it and made it a true art form. Now, you young people, you listen for the key brothers in this holler. That's Mr. Donkey and Mr. Monkey. All right, you ready? And when I was learning how to do this holler, I noticed that it sounded like those two animals. And so I decided to incorporate it into my holler that I actually did in the contest. It goes like this. Oh, oh, yeah, oh, oh, yeah, so you can have fun with the hollering. Thank you, thank you. And another type of holler is one that somebody came up with. I don't know that it corresponds to any song that they heard or anything like that, but Mr. Floyd Lee did a holler that I sort of internalized, and I hear it as this sad, lilting lament that somebody might use to mourn a lost loved one. And in fact, I was able to, in Cave Hill Cemetery in Louisville, Kentucky, to perform this holler at my father's and my mother's grave during the service. Ooh, yo, yo. Another holler, thank you, is that they would be out in the fields and they would holler tunes that they knew. And some of those tunes were the hymns that they sang in church on Sunday. So they might be out in the field plowing behind a mule or whatever, and they might just be letting loose with this, like with a hymn. And one of the ones that I heard about was, we know it as "In the Sweet By and By, There's a Land That Is Fairer Than Day." And one of the hollerers, Mr. Leonard Emanuel, said that this would be back in the 1920s, 19 teens and 20s, when he was coming up. He heard the train coming. He said it was a steam train, so maybe it was earlier than that. And one of the people on the train, the fireman or the engineer or whoever he was able to put a wood chip in the whistle of the train. And somehow he was able to vary the pitch. And he did this song, "In the Sweet By and By." And Leonard Emanuel took that and turned it into a holler, and it sort of simulated that train whistle that he had heard. Ooh, 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 ooh. Thank you, and God bless you all.